Okay, cool little tutorial for you right now. We're going to be talking about concurrent movement patterns, countercurrent movement patterns, and then finish up with Lombard's paradox. So we talked in a video I made called Lengthened and Shortened Active Insufficiency. We learned that there is a desired length of muscle, the length of your muscles that will give you the most strength possible or the most force possible, and that is in the slightly stretched position. And there's a cool way that our bodies use this fact of maintaining a slightly stretched position so that we aren't going into shortened active insufficiency or lengthened active insufficiency in various movements. And this happens over biarticular movements. Biarticular muscles. Now, biarticular muscle is a muscle that crosses two joints. So, as the muscles we're going to be using for our examples is the rectus femoris and the biceps femoris. So, for this first thing that takes advantage of concurrent movement patterns, what we call it, or maintaining the slightly stretched position, is the concurrent movement pattern. And what it is I'll give you the example of your rectus femoris here. So I just drew a little stick figure and he's going into the squat position. And you can see that at his hip, the muscle, when his hip does hip flexion, the muscle is going to get shorter. If you just isolate this top part of the rectus femoris muscle, it's going to get shorter. And you think that would, eventually get too short, that you're not generating the force from your myosin and actin as effectively. But what is happening is at the same time at the knee, that muscle has to, as it's flexing, as your knee is flexing, it has to stretch over the patella, and it lengthens at the knee. So simultaneously, you have your muscle shortening at your hip, but also lengthening at your knee. But overall, it's not actually lengthening or shortening, it's just kind of moving forward as you go down into the squat position. And that is a concurrent movement pattern to maintain maximum power in the slightly stretched position of your muscle. And then we have kind of the opposite, where you kind of have a negative for both muscles. And the classic example they use in kinesiology is kicking a football. So, I'm going to embarrass myself and pretend to kick a football here. And I can't go very far in my kick. I can't kick up to my face like some of those dancers and the football players, frankly, can do it as well. Because, first of all, in my rectus femoris, as I flex my hip more and more, it is causing the muscle to be shorter. And so I don't have my myosin and actin being able to contract because of shortened active insufficiency. So I have a negative effect because of shortened active insufficiency, because my muscle is basically being shortened over my hip and knee joint. So, and then also I have my antagonist muscle that's being stretched. And so it's developing passive tension. And that's a negative. That's also keeping me from doing hip flexion and kicking that football as hard as I can. So football players often will have strong rectus femoris muscle, strong quads, and they'll really stretch out their hamstrings so they can eliminate that passive tension as much as possible. And the third thing we're going to talk about is Lombard's paradox. Basically, Lombard's paradox is, if you do a squat, you'll feel your quads and your hamstrings are both contracting. But you might say those are antagonistic to each other, and if both are contracting and they're antagonists, how is movement even happening? And if you think about it, that can be puzzling. But the reason that desired movement can happen is because of the muscular force arm. So I tried to draw a little diagram to try to explain it, and it's not perfect, but I hope it gets the idea across. So I'm going to zoom in on those drawings. So here we have the origin of your rectus femoris muscle. It is on your anterior inferior iliac spine, and it's going down and connecting to your patellar tendon in the front. But you can kind of see that the actual rotation of your leg comes from this force arm that is in this direction. So I'll try to draw the force arm. So it's kind of coming from the middle of, I'll say middle of my femur to the origin. That's basically my mechanical force arm that is causing rotation or hip flexion. Okay, but then if I look at my biceps femoris muscle, it originates on your ischial tuberosity, and you can see that that is, further from the axis of rotation on your femur than it is in your rectus femoris. So that difference in force arm, if they're both contracting, which one is going to win out? Your biceps femoris muscle is going to win out, and you are going to be able to, come out of that squat or go down in that squat, and while maintaining contraction of both muscles. And then the same thing is happening, but you have an advantage in your knee. So here, your rectus femoris muscle, it's wrapping around your patella, so that gives it a good mechanical advantage, or force arm, a better force arm. So you can kind of see it's that long versus, this long. This is longer than your biceps femoris mechanical advantage. So that, when both muscles are contracting, that's going to cause knee extension. And that gives it a mechanical advantage there. So you have a mechanical advantage of the biceps femoris at the hip, and a mechanical advantage of the rectus femoris muscle at the knee. Both combined are both going to help you in your squat motions or your jumping motions or running motions. So pretty cool stuff.